Tariff wars, who blinks first, was my piece over the weekend. James Dean was an iconic American actor who tapped into the universal yearning and angst of nearly every adolescent human being with a raw connection that has surely not been surpassed since. In one of his most consequential films, Rebel Without a Cause, two players, read teenage boys, decide to settle a dispute, read teenage girl, by way of near-death experiences. Each speeds an automobile towards a cliff. A simple rule governs the challenge. The first to jump out of his automobile is the chicken, and by universally accepted social convention concedes the object in dispute. The second to jump is victorious, and depending on context, becomes gang leader, prom king, etc. Jimmy, James Dean, to settle a dispute with teenage girl with Buzz, the leader of a local gang, agrees to a Chickie run. Both race stolen cars towards the edge of a cliff. The first to eject out of his car is branded a Chickie. Seconds into the race, Buzz discovers that his jacket is stuck on the door handle, making jumping out of the car somewhat difficult. Jimmy jumps out an instant before the cars reach the edge of the cliff. Buzz, still unable to free his jacket from the door handle, fails to escape. While he won't be branded a Chickie, he suffers a worse fate. President Trump, after bashing on Justin Trudeau of Canada and Mexico's Enrique Peña Nieto, now upended of course, and then firing a few broadsides at Europe, has now turned his attention to Xi Jinping and thrown him the keys, challenging him to a Chickie run, and also sent 2 US destroyers into the Taiwan Strait for the first time since 2007. China has accused US President Trump of launching the largest trade war in economic history. President Trump has seemingly always fancied his chances in this trade war business and said as much. He is unhappy with America's $376 billion deficit in goods trade with China and a system of trade which he believes advantages China. Trump and his advisers argue the tariffs are necessary to pressure China into abandoning unfair practices such as stealing intellectual property and forcing American companies to hand over valuable technology. Washington put tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods on Friday, and Beijing immediately responded with penalties of an equal scale. The cost of the new tariffs can be found in the roughly 1,300 individual products that have suddenly become more expensive. The Chinese government has been quite surgical in its response and is targeting the farm economy in particular. Oxford Economics has estimated tariffs will knock around 0.1 to 0.2% of each country's growth rate this year, which struck as a complacent and very binary prediction. Oxford Economics' prediction is assuming no further escalation and a correlation which is not proven. The US is calculating that its economy is blowing hot, and it can therefore make Xi Jinping jump. Trump described the potential escalation to reporters aboard Air Force One, 34, and then you have another 16 in 2 weeks, and then, as you know, we have 200 billion in abeyance, and then after the 200 billion, we have 300 billion in abeyance, okay? Trump said. So we have 50 plus 200, almost 300. That amount is higher than an earlier threat from Trump to target as much as $450 billion of Chinese exports. It's also bigger than the $506 billion of goods that the United States imported from China last year. If we see such an escalation, it's a sure thing the hit to GDP is going to be more than 0.1 to 0.2%. That Oxford Economics' don't worry, be happy prediction. In fact, I recall speaking to a Standard Chartered economist who said the precursor to this trade war was witnessed in the 1930s, and then the world economy cratered. The global trade wars that followed the harsh tariffs imposed by the Hoover administration in the early 1930s, followed the stock market crash of 1929, deepened the trough of the Great Depression. Worldwide economic hardship led to political restructuring and eventually to World War II. This is a multi-dimensional chessboard, however. China has yanked Pyongyang's leash. The KCNA reported that Pompeo was sent packing with a few choice phrases. The US is fatally mistaken. If it went to the extent of regarding that the DPRK would be compelled to accept out of its patience the demands reflecting its gangster-like mindset. Emerging and frontier markets have surfed higher on lashings of cheap money now being reversed, and on expanding global trade and GDP, cheap money is being reversed. EM currencies need the liquidity that the big central banks are starting to take back. Buying EM into the teeth of this epic liquidity drain is not a cute contrarian trade. It is suicide unless you think it is a ruse, and they all stay easy, says Pinocchio Macro. And if we get a fully blown tariff war, it's going to be a double whammy for the emerging and frontier markets universe. I concluded by asking, who will blink first? James Dean, of course, rebel without a cause. This is the clip I was referring to, the chicken game video. We are both heading for the cliff. Who jumps first is the chicken. And then a Wikipedia entry, Rebel Without a Cause, is a 1955 American drama film about emotionally confused suburban middle-class teenagers, filmed in the recently introduced CinemaScope format and directed by Nicholas Ray. It offered both social commentary and an alternative to previous films depicting delinquents in urban slum environments. The film stars James Dean, Sal Mineo, and Natalie Wood. US officials privately believe the Chinese economy is more brittle than many know. Total debt is on course for 300% of GDP. This is the point I was making. US economic strength gives Trump leeway in trade fight with China.